What's happening, Hardscapers? Today we're going to talk about how long pavers last. Let's get into this. Whenever somebody asks the question, how long do concrete pavers last, they're usually referencing one of two things. The first being the pavers themselves, how long they will last. The second being the system itself, including the base. How long is that paver solution going to last? So we're going to tackle each of these. I still think pavers are the best solution for your pavement, and we have a video talking about concrete versus pavers. That'll be linked in the description below. But we also have a video contrasting that one and why pavers suck. So that'll also be linked in the description below. But first and foremost, how long are your pavers actually going to last? In these days, most of the reputable paver manufacturers offer a lifetime warranty. Now, it is a limited lifetime warranty, so in theory, they should last a lifetime. However, most people are not living in their houses forever, they're moving, so that limited lifetime warranty no longer applies to them once they've moved. Plus, there's other factors that play into that, and there is some fine print with that warranty. If you find a paver or a paver manufacturer that you want installed, I recommend checking out their warranty information. There's some things that do not apply to it, such as the efflorescence that could appear on the surface, which is that white powdery residue, and is a natural occurrence with concrete. It should go away, but it can also be cleaned. Also, some other things like maintaining your pavers, and if you have snow, making sure that you're using the proper tools to remove that snow that's not going to scuff the pavers, and using the right de-icing agents to preserve those pavers. That being said, we have reinstalled pavers that were upwards of 15 to 20 years old, and they were still structurally fine. And that's going back those 15 years with that technology, and technology has improved greatly since with the manufacturing of these pavers. Key thing there is that they're structurally fine. That doesn't mean that they're aesthetically as pleasing as they were when they were first installed. There's lots of environmental factors that will cause those pavers to wear away over time and expose the larger aggregates in those pavers to the surface. Now, with traditional pavers, I actually think they look fine with that exposed aggregate on them. And I'm talking more those tumbled pavers that are looked aged when you install them. It actually complements the aesthetic a little bit. Though the day you install them, they look a lot nicer for sure. But this becomes a problem with more modern aesthetic pavers that are larger format and sleek. That exposed aggregate's not going to look as good. But there is new technology that prevents this from wearing away, and we're still wanting to see how those pavers will look 15 years down the road, because this is newer technology. This is things like factory sealing pavers and face mix pavers, where there's a fine layer on top of the structural larger aggregate mixture of those pavers. And as that fine layer starts to wear away, you still are left with that fine layer showing. Additionally, sealing those pavers is going to extend the life of that surface of those pavers, but then you have to reseal every 5 years or so, depending on the traffic. And now porcelain is being more and more embraced, and they are resistant to fading and to scratching and to stains as well. Whereas pavers, you do need to maintain a lot more, and it's good if you could clean them at least once a year. And they could stain and they could fade over time, especially if you're not sealing them or they haven't come factory sealed. So your pavers are going to last a very, very long time, and most manufacturers stand behind their product with that limited lifetime warranty, as long as those pavers are being maintained. My oldest paver project was put in the ground 17 years ago, and it still looks the same today as it did when we first installed it. Though those older pavers are starting to show that exposed aggregate coming to the surface as the surface wears down. But another benefit of pavers is if you do want a different look, the base is still good, you could remove them and replace them. But that brings us to our second point, and that is the base. When people ask how long will my pavers last, the base is a big important of that system. We've all seen paver projects that have failed, and that comes down to the base, how it was installed, and the materials used to install it. The appropriate base depth is really important and key to make sure that you have a solid foundation for your pavers to lie on. We use geotextiles and geogrids in our bases to make sure that we're stabilizing that base and we're separating it from the subsoil. Non-woven geotextiles are good for separation and drainage. Woven geotextiles are good for separation and stabilization. In addition to that, biaxial and triaxial geogrids are good for stabilizing the aggregate that's placed on top of them. These are great materials to use to make sure that your base is solid. The aggregates used is also just as important. Dense graded base is using a granular A or 3/4 inch down to fines with a concrete sand bedding layer. Open graded base is constructed using 3/4 inch angular crushed clear stone with a bedding layer of 1/4 inch or HPB crushed clear stone. We prefer this method because it allows that water to permeate through that base and out of our system. And then a synthetic base is using Paver base panels on top of that HPB. And these are all recognized as good base materials to use by manufacturers, but what is not recognized is using stone dust or limestone screenings. This is a byproduct of creating aggregates. It's the leftover material and it's sold very cheap and installed very cheap. It's poor draining, it holds onto water, and that's going to cause the failure of your jointing compound as well as your pavers over time, and this will increase the likelihood of efflorescence showing on the surface of your pavers. Because most paver warranties and manufacturers state what their approved base preparation methods are, they're likely not going to uphold their paver warranty if it's installed on a material that they do not recognize. And lastly, the compaction, probably the most important part of this, you need to have appropriate compaction of those materials using the appropriate compactor for the application, and for the lift or the height of material you install before compacting is incredibly important. Edge restraints are one area of failure. Using a plastic edge restraint with 10-inch spikes, those might heave over time and become unsightly, and there are alternatives such as concrete edge restraints. Or these days we've used a truss material with our porcelain installations that act as that edge restraint because our porcelain is back buttered and adhered into that truss setting bed. Once it cures, it's not going anywhere. And the last and most common area of failure, if it's not maintained, is that joint fill. Polymeric sand is widely used for joint fill, and typically about every 5 years we're starting to see that start to show signs of needing some maintenance or to be even replaced in some cases. Projects that get very little sun or don't have appropriate slope are going to hold on to that water, and that water causes failure of those jointing compounds. Organic growth becomes more prevalent, and slowly it starts to erode that joint away. If you start to see organic growth, address it sooner rather than later and maintain your project by cleaning it, like I said, at least once a year. We have open graded base installations that have lasted, like I said, 17 years was my first project using open graded base. And using synthetic base, we have a project that's 7 years old now this year, and it looks great to this day. Additionally, those pavers still look excellent. Actually, we use slabs, but for this purpose, we'll just call it the same. Like I said, two factors that play into this. Your pavers, how long are they going to last? And your base, how long is that going to last? All of the different aspects of what we talked about through this video, we have videos for everything. Those will be all linked in the description below if you want to check those out. If you have any questions, leave a comment in the comment section. Like this video if you found it helpful for whatever reason, and subscribe to this YouTube channel for more hardscaping content like this. Thank you so much for watching.